Welcome back. In this step, let's quickly review all that we have done in the last few steps. We started creating a simple demo application using Spring Initializer, and then we created an entity called course. And then we created a course repository to be able to insert, update, delete, and do operations, do the typical CRUD operations on the course. The course repository helps us to do that. And we created a simple unit test called course repository test. And the course repository test unit tests the different methods which are present in the course repository. So if I look at the course, the important things that are present are we are declaring a primary key called ID. A primary key will uniquely identify each row in a table. So if I say 10,001, there will be only one row in that table with 10,001. If I say 10,025, there will only be one row. At a maximum, there will be only one row with that primary key. And we defined a column called name. So this course table has two columns, ID and name. And we created a few methods, right? We created getters and setters. We created a constructor. This is something JPA needs. So those are the things that we established in our entity. Entity is a course. So typically, if without the entity, this course is like any Java bean. How do you make the bean special? How do you make the bean entity? By adding an at entity. An entity is a bean plus plus. So a bean which is stored to the database, which gets the values from the database. That's your entity. This actually maps to row in your table. So an entity bean maps to row in the table. So there's a row in the table which is corresponding to this bean. That is what is an entity. And then we went to the course repository. We used entity manager find method to be able to find a specific ID. So I'm able to find a specific row of a course by using its primary key ID. And then we were able to write a method to delete by ID as well. So we used the ID to delete a row, and we wrote a method to be able to save the details. By save, we mean both insert and update. When the ID is null, we are trying to insert it in. Otherwise, we are trying to save the details. We are trying to update the row. And in the course repository test, we wrote the corresponding unit test. We retrieved the details of 10,001 and saw that the name of the course is as expected. We deleted 10,002 and saw that the value when we are retrieving find by ID 10,002 is null. So this row is deleted. One of the things is we don't want unit tests to change data. We don't, at the end of the unit test, we would want to actually reset the system back to the same data. And that we achieve by using @dirties context. So that ensures that any other test makes use of 10,002, the row is still there in the database. So this unit test would run, it would check all the things that it would want to check, and after that the data gets reset again. That's done by using the @dirties context annotation. And we wrote a simple save unit test as well. We took the course, we updated the name of the course, and we saw that when we retrieve the course again, we get the updated details back. Other than this, what we did until now is in the demo application, we used something called a command line runner. So what would happen is whenever the application gets launched, whenever this context gets launched, whatever is in the run method gets executed. So in here, as of now, we are actually creating a very simple new course. If you would want to play around, this is the place you can try and play around. So you can call any repository methods in here and go to the H2 console and see if they are reflecting or not. When you launch up the H2 console and look at the data for the course, you'll be able to see all the details that we have changed as part of our demo application. One more thing I would recommend you to do to get further understanding of what's happening behind the screen is to use the debug mode. So if I'm running the demo application, let's kill this. I'm putting a debug point in here. So double click down here and you'd be able to insert a debug point. And I can come here and now I can say right click, debug as Java application. All that we had to do was come to the demo application, add a debug point in here, and then, or actually it's called a breakpoint. So add a breakpoint in here by double clicking in there and right click debug as Java application. Typically we use run as. In this situation we are using a debug as. Now it launches it up in debug perspective. So now I can say yes, and you'd see that we are inside the debug perspective, inside the course method. If I go to the database now, go to the H2 console now and refresh the page, connect again and go to the course, run it, you'd see that the new course is not yet inserted. You can see that the new course is going to be inserted a little later in our piece of code. For now, what we are trying to do is retrieve the details for 10,001. The way you can execute this is by using your function keys, or you can use the keys which are present in here. So I would want to step over F6. So now the details of the course are retrieved. You can see what's happening in the log. I'll do a step over again. You'd see that the details of the course are printed. I'll clear the console again. And now I would execute this statement again. You'd see now that the row is getting inserted, insert statement gets called. You can see what are the values that are getting passed. You can see the statistics which are getting fired. And I can go here, run, and I can now see that it's having new row present because that's inserted in, and also go ahead and do a F8, function F8 that would complete the execution. Now I can actually now go and see all the data which is present in here. It would have all the data that is present at the launcher. So this is one of the other things you can do to be able to understand the whole thing further. This is called debugging. We are actually putting a debug point, launching the application in debug mode, and checking everything is working fine. In this step, we wanted to give you a quick overview of what we have done until now, as well as show you a few tips about debugging. Until the next step, bye-bye.